The max flow problem is illustrated here. So you have a special node that is called the source, and there is a special node that is called the sink. The source is where the flow is originated, and the sink is where it finishes. So, and you have also a number on every edge that tells you the maximum number of liters that can flow inside the edge, and you can really see the edge as a pipe, okay, and you can view this number as a kind of diameter of the pipe that tells you how much liter per minute can flow at most between the node 1 and node 6, for instance. Between node 1 and node 2, here it's 3. And the goal of the maximum flow problem is to pour as many liters per minute as possible so that you respect the capacity of every edge. And of course, you need to decide how much will flow in every edge of this graph. And so let's do the exercise together. This is my source node, this is my sink node. These are the capacities. How much do you think that can flow inside every pipe? So for instance, let's try to pour here 4 units. So we will, for instance, here decide to have 3. Let's say 3. Let's say here it would be 4. Okay. And of course, you have the flow conservation constraint that must hold. So if you have 3 that comes here, maybe you will have 2 here, 2 here, right? And then 1 here, and then you have 4, okay? And 4 plus 1 will be 5, okay? So that's one possibility. And so in that case, the total amount of flow that you will be able to put inside the source node is 7 liters per minute, right? And so here you will have 3 liters per minute, 2 liters per minute, and so on. So 7 liters per minute was the answer. Okay, that's the solution. And of course, as I said, nothing is created inside the intermediate nodes, which means that it's a little bit like the Kirchhoff law in electronic circuits. You have flow conservation. What enters inside the nodes is exactly the same as what is out of a node, right? And there is no accumulation neither, right? You cannot accumulate here. So you have a perfect equality between the amount of flow that enters inside a node and the one that goes out of a node. That's the flow conservation constraint. The max flow problem, so the problem of deciding how much flow we can put on every edge, you can solve that problem in polynomial time. And we will show an algorithm to solve that problem. And this problem, again, can be used to solve many different types of complex problems, and not only toy problems such as how much water flow inside the pipes. You can think, for instance, about computer networks. Okay, that's a little bit the same. And the max flow problem can also be used as subroutine for many other problems like NP-hard as well. So the formal definition is that one, we assume that edges are unidirectional. So it means that if there is a node A and a node B, then the edge is only in one direction, and that the one in the opposite direction we assume that it does not exist for now, right? The edges are unidirectional. Then we have a special node S that provides the water, that's called the source, and there is a special node T that will absorb the water, that is called the sink, and there is as well the capacity of every edge is denoted by C, so that's the capacity on the edge AB. This value is positive if the edge is on the graph, and it is 0 if AB is not an edge, right? We assume that it's 0 by default. And the flow vector is a vector that will be associated with every pair of nodes, and FAB is the value of the flow quantity between node A and B. And we have the following relation. We say by convention that the flow from A to B is equal to minus the flow from B to A, right? And because why we can do that? Because we know that the edge BA does not exist if the edge AB exists. The flow conservation constraint can be written like this. We say that B is an incoming node, okay? that's an incoming out node, and B here is the out node from node A. And so we have here the flow conservation constraint inside node A. So what enters inside the node A is equal to the amount of flow going out of node A, denoted here. Or equivalently, we can write it like this. And the capacity constraint requires that you do not exceed the capacity that was specified and fixed in your problem. So the flow of AB must be less than the capacity of AB. Okay? And of course, since if the edge AB does not exist in your graph, you have that the flow AB is less than or equal to 0. Okay, that one cannot be positive neither. A valid flow is a flow that satisfies the conservation constraint and the capacity constraint. And a null flow is a valid flow where you have 0 for every edge. The value of a valid flow is the quantity out of the source node. Okay, so the value of the flow itself is equal, you take the node S, that's the source node, you take every node going out of the source node, you take the value of the flow on that edge, you sum them all, and that's the value of the flow. And that one will be also equal, the value of the flow will be also equal to the value that enters inside the sink node, the node T, the special node T. And the problem, the max flow problem, is a problem of discovering the maximum value for V of F, the maximum value of the flow in your graph. That's the one that you want to maximize. So that's a graphical representation. Okay, so that was our solution with a value for the flow of 7. And if you represent the edges that are not present, you simply put it like that. Okay. The capacity here is 0 because that edge does not exist, and you take the opposite, and so you put -3 in that direction. That works as well. So these two representations are totally equivalent. Okay, these two representations are totally equivalent with respect to the definition that we had. It's a little bit simpler to write the flow conservation constraint like this. Okay, if you remember. It's a little bit simpler to write the flow conservation if we have that convention, right? So let us try a very simple algorithm. The algorithm will be the following. As long as we can find a path P with residual capacity in graph G, we will augment as much as possible the flow on the path P. Let's do that. So assume that I have here my path 1, 2, 5, 6. And so on that path, you see that currently I have 0 flow. And so clearly I can increase a little bit the flow along that path. But how much? Well, here you see that we could increase it by 3, by 2, and by 5. But since we need to increase by the same amount, because we still want to satisfy the flow conservation constraint, we need to find the bottleneck. And so the smallest capacity along that path is 2. Okay, that's your bottleneck. And so we will only do +2 here, +2, +2. Okay, because of this limitation here. What about this path? Okay, along that path, you see that my bottleneck is now this one, 4. So I can do +4 everywhere along that path. Okay, no, not really, because if you read that one, okay, on that one, I already have 2 units of flow out of a capacity of 5. So actually, my residual capacity that I have here is 3. Okay, and so the real bottleneck will be 3. So I can do +3, +3, +3. Okay, and that edge here will be saturated. What about that path? Along that path, the residual capacity here is 1, 2, and 3, and so that will be the bottleneck. So I do +1, +1, +1, like that. Okay, is this all we can do? Well, if you remember, we found a solution initially that was equal to the value of flow, flow value of 7, but here we only have 6 units of flow going out here. Okay, We have 6 units of flow. And do you think that we could improve with this algorithm? Can we improve and discover the flow value of 7? Well, we see that it's not really possible, right? Because here it's saturated already. Okay, that one is saturated, so we cannot really augment it. If we go in that direction, that one is saturated as well. So we are kind of stuck, right? We cannot improve it. So that's not a very that's a simple algorithm, but it's not really working yet. So on that solution, you see that there is no path anymore on G with residual capacity. Okay, but we know that the value 6 is not optimal. Okay, we know that it should be 7. So how can we solve that problem? Let's consider canceling the flow, right, to improve the solution. Let's consider also the idea of canceling a flow. So here, for instance, it's fine. I can push a little bit more flow on that edge because it's not yet saturated. I can clearly increase the flow on that one. On that one, I could increase it by 1 as well. But if here you see that I also have some residual capacity. So it means that if I want to increase along that path and along that path, I will need to cancel the flow that was here. I need to cancel it to redirect it in that direction. And if I can redirect it in that direction, I will be able to improve it by 2 units, at least on that segment of path. Okay, so taking into consideration the idea of canceling the capacity is also a very, very good idea. And this is what we'll do, right? Because if you push +2 here, you push +2, and then here you will do -2, then you can reroute the flow and do +2 here again. Okay? And so if you do that, you still have the flow conservation constraint, because the 2 units of flow that you had here, instead of going in that direction, you cancel them and you will say, instead, I will push them in that direction. Okay, the 2 units of flow. And that's the action that you take here, is canceling the flow. But you think that it's still a kind of path. It's a path from the source to the sink. Simply, sometimes you will take the action of increasing the flow, and sometimes you will cancel the flow by the same amount. So to discover very interesting paths like that, we will have to build an intermediate graph that we call the residual graph. The residual graph that and we use that notation of a subscript, F, to say that it's a residual graph, is used to discover the path from the source to the sink on which it's possible to push an additional quantity of water, and so increase the value of the flow. In this graph, you have exactly the same set of nodes, but you see that the edges are a little bit different. The edges will be a little bit different in the sense that we will, instead of the original capacity, we will compute what we call a residual capacity. How do we compute that residual capacity of an edge? Well, for the edge AB, if the flow on that edge used to be FAB, and if it is less than the capacity that it can reach, the residual capacity will be the difference between the capacity and the flow that you currently have. Okay, that's the residual capacity. So, for instance, if you have a node AB, you have an edge AB, and you have 4 out of 6, 6 is your capacity, then if this is the edge in the residual graph, it will have a capacity here. 2 will be CFAB. Okay, that's the residual capacity. But, okay. Without, yes. So, the residual capacity that we will add are represented here. Okay. So that's the graph with the flow, and so that will be the residual graph here that you have here. What is interesting is that you can also cancel the flow. Okay, you can also cancel the flow because by convention here, if you remember, we had the opposite edge. Okay, so if you push 1 unit of flow here, okay, we had the -1 here. So in the residual graph, we will have, according to our definition, which is the capacity minus the flow, it will be 0. Here it will be 0 minus -1, and so we have a residual capacity in that direction of 1 as well. Okay, which means that we cancel the flow in that direction if we would use that edge in the path to augment the flow. So that's the idea of the residual graph. We can use that graph and we can compute path in that graph to detect possible improvements inside the current flow value. And so a path that in the residual graph that is able to reach the sink node starting from the source node, we call that an augmenting path. Okay, it's a path on which it's possible to push at least one more unit of flow along the edges. And so how do you improve, how much do you increase the flow along that augmenting path? It's given by the value Q here, okay? The value Q will be the smallest residual capacity that you can find on the path, okay? And so you find this smallest residual capacity, Q, and you will increase the flow value by Q or decrease the flow value by Q if BA is on the augmenting path and if AB is on the augmenting path, right? And otherwise, if it's not, you simply keep the same value for the flow as you used to have before. That's the idea of the first Fulkerson algorithm. It requires the capacities to be integer. It's an iterative algorithm. At each iteration, the algorithm will take a valid flow and transform it into another valid flow that is improved by at least 1 unit of flow. Okay, and so this new flow has a strictly larger value, which proves that the algorithm will at least converge towards a maximum flow. Okay, and the flow increase is done along a path that is called the augmenting path. And the augmenting paths are discovered in a transformed graph called the residual graph. That's the summary of the Ford Fulkerson algorithm. That's the pseudocode of the algorithm. So you have in inputs your graph, the vector of capacities, the source node, the sink node. You initialize the vector flow all at 0. You build the residual graph. You find a path from S to T in that residual graph. If such a path exists, you compute Q, the smallest residual capacity on an edge along that path, and then you apply the transformation on the augmenting path. Okay? In the direction of the edges that exist in the graph, you increase it. Okay? If you go in the opposite direction of the flow, you decrease by Q to cancel the flow. And you do that until you cannot find a path between S and T in the residual graph. And then you return the flow that you have. And that one can be proven to be the optimal flow. Let's study one example of the algorithm. So that's the residual graph that we have initially. Okay, we find an augmenting path, for instance that one. We increase the flow along that path. Okay, we get that flow. And this is the new residual graph. Okay, we find in this residual graph, yes, yeah. So you have so you put. Okay, let me just check. So what is the smallest value along that path? You see that the bottleneck here is 2, so we will push 2 units of flow in that direction. Okay, 2 units of flow. You compute the residual graph, so you see that we have 2 units of flow that you can cancel. This is why here, this is your residual graph. Okay, you have a residual capacity here of 2 because you can cancel 2 units of flow, but here you have 1 more unit that you could push, so you have 1 in that direction. Okay, and so you compute the residual value for all the edges. Again, you find an augmenting path. You can, for instance, use that one. what is the smallest capacity that you can have here? Well, the smallest one is 3, which means that you can push 3 more units of flow along that path. That's the new flow that you get, that one. That's the new residual graph. You compute the shortest path, or at least you discover one augmenting path in that graph. For instance, that one, that one, that one. You see that that one is amounts at canceling 2 units of flow in that direction. Okay, we were pushing 2 units of flow, but we will cancel them now. Okay, and so this is what you get here. Okay, because yes, that's the bottleneck value is 1. So you will push 1 unit of flow along that path. 1 unit of flow. And so this is what you get here, okay? Instead of 3, you do +1, you've got 4. You do +1, you've got 4. And then you will cancel that unit of flow. You will cancel it because you will go in that direction, okay? You used to have 2, you cancel it by 1, and so now you have 1. Then you push that unit of flow in that direction, and you also push that unit of flow in that direction. Okay, so that's again the new residual graph. And you find an augmenting path, you got that one. Okay, that's the new flow. You compute the residual graph. That's the residual graph. You try to discover a path from node 1 to node 6 in this residual graph. So let's try to do it. So you go, for instance, there. And you see that you are stuck. Okay? Okay, no more paths are possible. And since there are no more paths, we are done. Okay? This is the optimal flow. So let's study the time complexity of this algorithm. At each iteration, we search for a path in the residual graph. If you remember the depth first search introduction that I made, the time complexity for one depth first search is order of the number of nodes plus the number of edges, linear time this. And so since the graph is connected, we know that the number of nodes is less than the number of edges. And so looking for a path, we can say that it's this in the order of the number of edges. Then we need to update the residual graph by processing every edge of the augmenting path. That's order of V, order of the number of nodes. Okay. How many iterations do we have? That's the very important question. How many iterations do we have in this algorithm? Okay, so if I look back at the pseudocode, this is one iteration. And so clearly one iteration can be in the order of the number of edges. But how many of them do we have? That's a quite difficult question to answer. Well, the number of iterations, if we increase at most by 1 at every iteration, is equal to the final value of the flow. And so the total complexity is equal to the final value of the flow multiplied by the number of edges. Okay? Is it polynomial? Okay, is this time complexity polynomial? Not really, right? Because if you have here very, very large values for the final value of the flow, then it can take a lot of time. Okay, so that's not strictly polynomial in the common sense. Okay, we say that it's pseudo polynomial in that case, because it also depends on the absolute value of the input that we have. So far we assumed that we had unidirectional edges, right? If you have the edge from A to B, we assume that that one did not really exist in the graph. We can drop that hypothesis easily, okay? We can assume that the input graph also has bidirectional edges. And we set the capacity to 0 if the edge does not exist in one direction. Okay, and the flow will now be defined in both directions of an edge by keeping this relation always satisfied. The flow from A to B plus the flow from B to A is equal to 0. And so the flow conservation constraint will be written like this. Okay, it's pretty similar to what we had before. Okay, but it's not a strong requirement that the edges are unidirectional anymore. So you can read the definition here about the residual capacity. Okay, it's almost the same as what we had before, but it also works with bidirectional edges. And that's an example with bidirectional edges.